Hello friends, welcome back to A Dog's Life in Liechtenstein, where we see Arthur gets a gift, the snow comes back, and we have family adventures. Early one morning, while I was still in my pajamas, the post rang at the door with a registered delivery addressed to Arthur. It was a gorgeous new collar from our friends in the Netherlands. Do you remember Eva? Well, from her owners. It's a really special collar, leather on one side and real Harris tweed on the other. The colors complement Arthur's coloring to perfection. What is also special for me is that the buckle and clip loop are brass, which also matches the clip on his lead. When I bought his lead, I thought it would be super easy to match the brass clip to a collar. But until now, I hadn't found one, so had to settle for a collar with chrome accents. Thank you, Eva and family. We really love it. The next week, my youngest daughter, her fiancé and their daughter visited from Bern to get in some snow, skiing and walking. This is pretty much a requirement since the schools in Switzerland usually give the children a week's sports holiday, so families can participate in sporting activities of some kind with their children. Of course, they brought their dogs Louie and Jacob with them. Arthur was in heaven to be back with his doggy family. Unfortunately, the first days of their visit were grey, wet and cold, so no skiing. We did go down and walk the dogs by the river. Once again, Louie got to play his favourite game of running with a stick and encouraging Arthur and Jacob to chase him. We all got completely soaked, but they had a great time and were ready to spend time in their baskets afterwards. Late the next afternoon, between snow showers, we took them up the mountain to enjoy playing in the snow, which they gladly did. Arthur and Jacob were completely into running around, But Louie was becoming more and more interested in smelling for mice and moles under the snow. Whenever the dogs are off the leash, it's important to periodically call them to heel, and at this stage they were all obedient and came each time. We walked a track that took us higher and higher up the hill, and Louie, who is not quite a year old and still in training, began to get very distracted by the smells under the snow and started to take longer and longer to come back when called. When Louie didn't come back to the group, it disturbed Jacob, who kept going back to him to try and get him to follow. We could see Louie kept raising his head to check where we were, so we tried the old trick of going out of his sight to let him feel abandoned for a moment and then calling him. But that trick only worked to the extent that he just came close enough that he could see us again. Then suddenly, Louie crossed the track and headed up the hill, completely immersed in hunting mode. We tried everything, enthusiastically calling, letting Jacob go closer, going completely out of his sight for ages, but nothing worked. We were all getting cold and miserable and worried because soon it was going to get dark. Finally, my daughter had no other option but to start wading up the hill through thigh-deep snow towards Louie. I held Jacob and Arthur back, but as soon as my daughter was out of his sight, Jacob, who sensed we were worried, started barking and howling in distress. Up the hill, Louie heard him, and it seemed to snap him out of the hunting trance he was in. He returned to my daughter, and she was able to finally get him on the lead. He was led back to the car in total disgrace. After that stress, we needed some relaxation. My daughter and I are jigsaw puzzle fans. This one was a Christmas present from my daughter's fiancé and a real challenge. A problem with large puzzles is that they take up the dining table for days until completed. However, he had also gifted her this amazing felt pad. You work the puzzle on it and roll it up, half-finished puzzle and all, whenever you want to put it away, and simply unroll it whenever you want to continue. Ingenious. While we were distracted, Arthur kept sneaking into Jacob's bed. He's not supposed to, as a dog's bed is his castle. Jacob is too nice to be really nasty, but you can see on his face he's just not amused by the youngest brat's behavior. And to add insult to injury, Arthur begins rearranging the furniture. Despite the constant bad weather, my daughter was determined to get out and use her cross-country skis at least once. We're fortunate enough to have a wonderful langlauf or cross-country track just 10 minutes up the road from where we live. She was a little nervous as she hasn't done any for a couple of years, but she seemed to get right back into it. In the meantime, the rest of the family had become so bored with the bad weather, they had finally started a chore we'd put off for months and were preparing our bedroom for painting. Arthur was supervising the chaos. Finally, in the middle of the week, good skiing weather was forecast. My husband took a day off so he could take our granddaughter skiing. He chose to go to Arosa, so they left early in the morning. The rest of us walked the dogs and followed later so that we could meet up with them for lunch. It's a nice drive between Liechtenstein and Arosa with very typical Swiss mountain views, tunnels and passes. We waited to hear from the two skiers near the railway station where the town of Arosa circles a small lake, which was frozen at this time. Conveniently, many of the ski lifts and gondolas come right into the town. It was a pleasant place for the dogs and us to soak up some sun. But then my husband called to tell us that my granddaughter had fallen and hurt her arm. They were making their way down to a different place and could we please meet them there? Oh no. Well, the rest of the day was taken up with collecting them, having her checked, getting back home, and then a trip to the hospital for precautionary x-rays and ultrasound. Fortunately, it turned out to be nothing too serious. But that was the end of any skiing for the rest of the week. So, while my granddaughter rested and recuperated, at least my daughter and I could take advantage of the now gorgeous weather to walk the dogs. But now we had to take the precaution of keeping Louie on a long lead. We had learned our lesson. Well, friends, that was our week. Good and bad weather, dogs and grandchildren, accidents, painting and puzzles. Despite all the restrictions, we still managed to have a wonderful family time together. If you liked this video, please hit like, or even better, leave us a comment. If you'd like to see the story continue, then consider subscribing so you don't miss our next video where Arthur visits Switzerland's historic capital city. See you soon!